Good evening, my dear students. Now we are going to begin the physiology of hearing discussion as a part of special sense. Also, the maintenance of equilibrium will be discussed thereafter. Though equilibrium is not considered as a special sense per se, but the apparatus for maintenance of equilibrium and hearing apparatus are very closely interrelated. Hence, I shall be discussing the physiology of hearing first, thereafter the physiology of maintenance of equilibrium. On an introductory note, both hearing and equilibrium are the two sensory modalities whose receptors are housed within the human ear complex. Now this human ear complex consists of three basic parts: the external ear, the middle ear, and the internal ear. External ear is also commonly known as the outer ear, and the internal ear is commonly known as the inner ear. The inner ear again has four distinct parts, namely the cochlea, the semicircular canals, the saccule, and the utricle. Now, out of these subdivisions, the external ear, the middle ear, and the cochlear part of the inner ear is concerned with hearing, while the semicircular canals, the utricle, and the saccule, they are concerned with the maintenance of equilibrium. Now, the receptors, both for hearing as well as equilibrium, they are simply known as hair cells. They are arranged in groups. There are 6 groups of hair cells present in each inner ear. Means the cochlea, the semicircular canals, the utricle, and the saccule taken together on each side has 6 groups of hair cells. How these 6 are divided in the 4 parts? Actually, the semicircular canals are 3 in number. So, one group of hair cell in each of the semicircular canals, that makes 3. One group of hair cell in the saccule, 1 in the utricle, and 1 in the cochlea. So, this is the anatomy of the human ear. It is a schematic diagram. As you can see in the diagram, the 3 major subdivisions, namely the outer or the external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear, are marked at the top. The outer ear has 2 basic parts: the pinna or the auricle, which is the cartilaginous portion that juts out from the side of our face, and the external auditory meatus. The middle ear is a cavity within the temporal bone. It has 3 ear ossicles housed within it. The boundary of the outer and the middle ear is the tympanic membrane. The middle ear communicates with the inner ear through the oval window. The inner ear, here in the picture you can see, is showing the cochlea and the semicircular canals. The utricle and saccule is not well visible. The 3 main nerves that are related with the ear, mainly the cochlear division and the vestibular division of the 8th nerve and the 7th cranial nerve, is also shown in the diagram. Another important structure which is shown in the diagram is the communication between the middle ear and the nasopharynx through the pharyngotympanic tube or eustachian tube. The external ear, as I have already said, it has 2 main parts: the pinna and the external auditory canal or external auditory meatus. The pinna is the convoluted cartilaginous portion that sticks out from the side of our head. It is immobile in humans mostly. Some humans do have the ability to move their pinna, but for all practical purposes, the pinna are immobile. However, it plays a very small but important role in sound localization. How does it do so? Because of its disposition, it leads to changes in the character of the sound that comes from the front and the back. So the disposition of the pinna helps the humans to distinguish whether a sound is coming from the front or it is coming from the back of the head. The next structure is the external auditory canal. It is just a passage through which the sound waves from the outside environment reaches the tympanic membrane. The external auditory canal again has two parts. The outer part, which is strictly bony, covered with skin, and the inner part, which is rather a mucus type of structure and has glands that secrete a oily substance called cerumen. The job of this oily substance or cerumen is to trap the dust particles or any foreign particles that might enter into the external auditory canal so that they cannot go and directly injure the important structure after the canal, which is the tympanic membrane. This cerumen is basically the binding or the cementing structure or substance which is the part of our ear wax. The next structure is the middle ear. The middle ear is an air-filled cavity within the temporal bone. Laterally, it is bounded by the tympanic membrane, which is the border between the external and the middle ear, and medially, the middle ear is related to the inner ear. In the front or anteriorly, the middle ear is connected to the nasopharynx via the pharyngotympanic tube or eustachian tube, also known as the auditory tube. This tube is usually closed, but when we swallow, chew or yawn, it opens up. And what is the function of this opening up? It allows the air pressure within the middle ear to equilibrate with the air pressure of the nasopharynx, which is equal to the air pressure of the outside world. So basically, the air pressure on two sides of the tympanic membrane. On the outside, it is the outside air pressure. Inside is the air pressure of the middle ear cavity. Now, if the middle ear cavity pressure is less than the tympanic membrane pressure, then the tympanic membrane will try to push in. While if the middle ear cavity pressure becomes higher, it will try to push out the tympanic membrane. To stop this, the pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane needs to be equal. This equality of pressure of the both sides of the tympanic membrane is maintained by the connection of the middle ear cavity to the outside through the eustachian tube. The content of the middle ear cavity, the most important of them are the three ear ossicles or small bones, namely the malleus, the incus and the stapes. They form a chain, interconnecting chain, and they connect the tympanic membrane to the inner ear. The malleus is the first bone of the ossicular chain within the middle ear cavity. It is attached in three places. Through its handle, it is attached to the back of the tympanic membrane. Through its head, it is attached to the wall of the middle ear cavity, which gives strength and stability to the ossicular chain. And through its short process, it is attached to the second bone in the line, which is the incus. The incus in turn articulates with the head of the stapes, which is the third bone in the ossicular chain. The stapes, by its shape, resembles a stirrup of a saddle. A stirrup is that part of the saddle on which we place our foot when we ride a horse. So the stapes has a head and a foot plate or foot process. Through its head, it is attached to the incus, while its foot process is attached to the posterior margin of the oval window by means of a annular ligament. The attachment is such that the stapes or the foot plate of the stapes can move in and out of the oval window like a hinge door. The oval window in turn is related to the lateral end of the scala vestibuli of the inner ear. When I will discuss inner ear, you will understand better the scala vestibuli, the scala media and the scala tympani, the three compartments of the cochlea. For now on, just remember the ossicular chain has three bones, the malleus, the incus and the stapes. The malleus is attached to the back of the tympanic membrane and to the incus. The incus is attached to the stapes. The stapes are attached to the oval window, and this attachment is such that it is only attached to the posterior margin of the oval window, so that if the stapes moves, its foot process moves like a hinged door. Other than the ossicular chain, the middle ear also contains two small skeletal muscles, namely the tensor tympani and the stapedius. The tensor tympani is inserted to the handle of the malleus, that is the first bone, and is supplied by the trigeminal nerve or fifth cranial nerve, while the stapedius is inserted into the stapes, that is the third bone, and is supplied by the facial nerve. What is the job of these two muscles? Actually, if a sudden exposure of a very loud sound occurs, we have seen in our daily lives that suddenly we stop hearing for a while. Why does that happen? Because on exposure to a loud sound, both these muscles undergo reflex contraction. So on contraction of these muscles, there is pulling of the handle of the malleus medially and pulling of the foot plate of the stapes out of the oval window. Basically, the ossicular chain is splinted, that is, it stops movement. What happens is that the action of these two muscles helps to make the ossicular chain irresponsive to any further sound movement. Hence, the integrity of the chain is preserved, which could have been hampered if a very loud sound was allowed to pass through it. So the role of these two small muscles is to preserve the integrity of the ossicular chain and prevent barotrauma due to loud sound. This is a schematic diagram of the middle ear cavity which I was just talking about. You can see that there is the tympanic membrane shown, and to the back of it, on the top part, you can see the handle of the malleus is being attached. The malleus head is attached on two sides to the walls of the middle ear cavity, while the tendon of the tensor tympani muscle is shown to attach to the handle of the malleus. The malleus is articulating with the second bone. In the picture you can see the incus is there, which is in turn articulating with the stapes. The stapes diagram is further enlarged on the top right hand corner, where you can see that the stapes is shown to have a head and a foot process, and the foot process is overlying the oval window. The stapedius muscle is shown attached to the body of the stapes, and you can also see there is another structure shown in the diagram, which is the round window. The round window is another important structure, the importance of which I will deal with when I teach you inner ear. So this is the arrangement of structures within the middle ear cavity. The inner ear, as I have already discussed, consists of two parts: the cochlea, concerned with hearing, and the vestibular apparatus, concerned with maintenance of equilibrium. Now both of them are housed inside a bony labyrinth. Labyrinth is nothing but a series of channels. Now where is this labyrinth located? This bony labyrinth, or the series of channels, is located within the petrous part of the temporal bone. Now inside these channels is again another labyrinth, which is membranous in nature, which is known as the membranous labyrinth, and in between the bony and the membranous labyrinth is a fluid which is known as the perilymph. So basically there is the wall of the bony labyrinth and the wall of the membranous labyrinth. In between the two walls is the perilymph. Now the membranous labyrinth more or less duplicates the shape of the bony labyrinth. So basically there are two labyrinths, inside a membranous labyrinth and outside is the bony labyrinth, and in between them is the perilymph. Inside the membranous labyrinth is again a potassium rich fluid called endolymph, and these two fluids, mainly the perilymph and the endolymph, they do not communicate at all. The spaces of the membranous labyrinth is filled with endolymph, while the space between the membranous and the bony wall of the labyrinth is occupied by the perilymph. This is the schematic diagram of the inner ear. You can see that there are three semicircular canals: the utricle, the saccule, and the cochlea. The greenish part of the diagram depicts the areas which is filled with perilymph. It is a rough diagram, I am telling you, but for your understanding, the walls are the bony labyrinth. The greenish parts are those which are filled with perilymph, while the whitish part are those which are the part of the membranous labyrinth and are filled with endolymph. You can see the semicircular canals, the utricles and the saccule and the cochlea all are interconnected, and there is endolymph filling them up, while the perilymph is surrounding the membranous labyrinth. There is no connection between the endolymph and the perilymph filled areas. So the cochlear part of the inner ear. As you can see in the previous picture, the cochlear portion is basically a coiled tube. In a fully grown adult, the length of the tube, if it is uncoiled, is about 35 millimeter, and it takes 2 full and 3/4 of a third turn. So basically the cochlea is turned upon itself 2 and 3/4 times. Now throughout the length of the cochlear portion of the inner ear, there is the membranous labyrinth. The membrane that forms the membranous labyrinth in the cochlear portion has two subdivisions. The basal part of the membrane is known as the basilar membrane, while the apical part of the membrane is known as the Reissner's membrane. Now, if we take a cross section at any level of the cochlea, we will find that there will be the wall or the roof formed by the bony labyrinth. Then there will be the Reissner's membrane. Then there will be the part which is the inside of the membranous labyrinth. Then there will be the base of the membranous labyrinth formed by the basilar membrane. Then again there will be a perilymph filled space and ultimately the floor of the bony labyrinth. So basically throughout the length of the cochlea, these two membranes, the basilar and the Reissner's membrane, divided into three chambers. The chambers are also known as scala or scalae, plural. The upper part of the three is known as the scala vestibuli and the lower part is known as the scala tympani. They are intervening between the bony and the membranous labyrinth, hence they contain perilymph, and they communicate with each other at the apex of the cochlea. Means if we unfurl the cochlea, since it is turned 2 and 3/4 times, hence it is duplicating on itself. But if we unfurl it like the tail of a dog, it will have an apex. At the apical region, there is a communication between the scala vestibuli and scala tympani, through which perilymph can communicate between these two chambers. And this small opening near the apex is known as the helicotrema. We have seen that the scala vestibuli and scala tympani communicate near the apex. What happens near the base? Means where the tail is attached to the body of the dog. Here the scala vestibuli ends at the oval window. Just recall, where was the oval window? On the medial wall of the middle ear cavity. So basically the scala vestibuli is starting at the level of the oval window, continues and ends at the apex of the cochlea and communicates with the scala tympani through the helicotrema. This oval window, as we have already seen, is closed by the footplate of the stapes. What happens to the scala tympani? It is starting near the helicotrema, and where does it end? It ends at the round window. I have shown you the picture of the round window while I was showing you the photograph of the middle ear cavity. I have said it there also. Just remember, it is an important structure. What is the round window? It is a foramen in the wall of the medial ear cavity again, and it is closed by a flexible secondary tympanic membrane. So there are two tympanic membranes, the tympanic membrane or the main tympanic membrane that intervenes between the outer and the middle ear, while there is a secondary flexible tympanic membrane that covers the round window. What happens to the scala media? It is not communicating with the middle ear at all. It lies in between the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani. It is bounded above by the Reissner's or the vestibular membrane and below by the basilar membrane, contains the endolymph, and it communicates with the membranous labyrinth of the vestibular apparatus and does not communicate with the other two scalae. The saccule of the vestibular apparatus is connected to the scala media. This is a schematic representation of the unfurled cochlea. As I was saying, on the top you can see there is the oval window which is closed by the footplate of the stapes. Then the top compartment, which is the scala vestibuli, which contains the perilymph. Its base is formed by the vestibular membrane, also known as the Reissner's membrane. It reaches up to the apex of the cochlea, where there is a small opening which is known as the helicotrema, and then it is connected to the third chamber or the lowest chamber, the scala tympani. The roof of it is formed by the basilar membrane. The scala tympani goes and ends in the round window, which is covered by a flexible secondary tympanic membrane. The scala media, which is the middle part, is totally detached from these other two scalae. It contains endolymph and it is communicating, though the communication is not shown here, it is communicating with the endolymph containing chamber of the vestibular apparatus through the saccule. Another thing which is written in the diagram is the spiral organ of Corti. This is the main organ which is responsible for our hearing, and it is located over the basilar membrane. Arrows are shown in the diagram. These arrows are the arrows that depict the direction of sound wave propagation. When I shall discuss the sound transduction in the human ear, you will understand it more properly. This is a more elaborate diagram of the human inner ear. On the top left, we can see the bony labyrinth, and it has the semicircular canals and the cochlea shown, along with the disposition of the vestibulocochlear nerve. If a section of the cochlea is cut and is magnified, its disposition is shown in the picture below. You can see there is a bony wall and there are three compartments which are divided by the Reissner's and the basilar membrane. The top compartment above the Reissner's membrane is the vestibuli or scala vestibuli, while the bottommost is the scala tympani. Both are filled by perilymph. In the middle, between the Reissner's and the basilar membrane, is the scala media, which is filled with endolymph. On the top of the basilar membrane, you can see the spiral organ of Corti is situated, and the spiral ganglion, which is the ganglion of the auditory nerve, is also located within the bony portion of the cochlea. On the right hand side, you can see three pictures. The lower two pictures I won't be explaining now. The top picture is a magnification of the organ of Corti. You can see the organ of Corti has certain structures. There is a tectorial membrane, and on top of the basilar membrane you can see there are cells which are located. These are the supporting cells, and there are pillar cells. In between the pillar cells there are rods of Corti, and between the rods of Corti there is a tunnel of Corti. And the most important cells for hearing, as I have said, the hair cells are also shown in the picture. So hair cells, or the receptors for sound transmission, are located in the organ of Corti. You can see the hair cells are again of two types. There are 3 rows of outer hair cells and a single row of inner hair cell shown in the picture. So to summarize, the human ear has 3 basic parts: the outer ear, the middle ear and the inner ear. The outer ear has the 2 parts, namely the pinna and the external auditory meatus. The middle ear, as its name contains, as the 3 ear ossicles, the malleus, the incus and the stapes, and the 2 small muscles, the tensor tympani and the stapedius. The inner ear has 2 parts, one concerned with maintenance of equilibrium, which is known as the vestibular apparatus, and the other is the organ which is related to hearing, which is the cochlea. The pinna, as I have already discussed, is important for sound localization. The external auditory meatus is the passage through which sound enters from the environment into the human ear. The tympanic membrane is the organ that helps in sound transduction along with the ossicular chain. And lastly, the cochlea, which is the part of the inner ear which is processing all the sound which is reaching it. The cochlea, the structure I have discussed in details. It has three compartments, namely the scala vestibuli, the media, and the tympani. Vestibuli and the tympani are containing perilymph. Media is containing the endolymph. The scala media is basically the membranous labyrinth. There are two membranes. The upper one is the Reissner or the vestibular membrane, and the lower is the basilar membrane. The basilar membrane is the structure on which the spiral organ of Corti is situated. This organ is responsible for our perception of hearing, and it is connected with the vestibulocochlear nerve through which we perceive sound. The rest portion of the human hearing mechanisms I will deal with later. For now, just try to understand the functional anatomy of the human ear. The details of the functional anatomy of organ of Corti and hair cell is rather complicated. I will deal with them in my subsequent lectures. Thank you.